Just like a spark that's breaking out, can't make a stop, can't turn back now. We know that there's no room for doubt. No, we can't turn back now. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Only just like the sunrise. You know that we're gonna light it up tonight. We're gonna light it up, baby. Tonight we're gonna light it up just like the sunrise. We're gonna light it up.
Welcome to the HVAC Guide for Homeowners YouTube channel live show where we talk about all things HVAC that no one else is talking about. We will be answering some of your questions live. Sometimes we are joined by other pros in the chat who might know answers to questions that I don't. And not only that, tonight we have a special guest. When I started making YouTube videos and this live show, my biggest goal was to give folks access to see and be a part of things that they can get nowhere else. And tonight is another great example of that. But before we bring on Zac, let's take a moment to pay the bills and thank the sponsor for our show. I wanted to take a quick break from the video and thank the sponsor of this video, Aeroseal. Leaky ductwork is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, energy wasters in most homes in the United States. And my favorite way of fixing that problem is Aeroseal. They'll come into your home, they'll test your ductwork and how leaky it is, they'll seal all the ductwork with a machine, and then they'll test it again and make sure that you got what you paid for. Customers have reported a significant savings on their energy bills after using Aeroseal. I'll put a link down in the description of this video. Thanks again to Aeroseal, and now let's get back to the video. Tonight's guest is the product manager for one of the coolest companies, and I said coolest, pun intended, in the HVAC industry. This company, Aeroseal, and Zac is guiding everything from initial product concept and to what color the screws are when it's shipped out. He's been with Aeroseal for a year and a half and sealed over 100 systems, and previously worked for the United States Air Force as a materials engineer for aircraft coating technology. Currently, he's helping build the next generation of equipment and educating homeowners on why leaky ducts matter so much. Please welcome Zac Reed. Hey, Zac, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you taking time. It's kind of an honor. I know we for a moment we were talking about, you know, what Aeroseal's doing before we went live here, and I think the comment was Aeroseal's kind of, they're so unique, they're so cutting edge, or I don't even know the adjective to give them, but you know, you guys are just kind of like the only ones that help folks and do what you do so well, I guess is the best way to go through it. But yeah.
So it's a double-edged sword, right? We've got, no one knows about us yet, and we don't have any competition. So the better we do, the harder it's going to be for us. But I'm excited to do what we can now, right?
Yeah, very cool. Well, first of all, thank you for serving our country. Can you talk before we get to Aeroseal a little bit about what you were doing with the Air Force and all that fun stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was never enlisted. I was a federal civilian, but I worked for about 10 years, pardon me, in a materials lab, helping our stealth fighter and bomber program become more maintainable, to be more stealthy, and to do better, right, when it's up in the air. I worked in a lab with a bunch of other people. We did a lot of really good work, from figuring out issues that we were having in the fleet to helping build the next generation. So
Did you ever do anything that you can't tell us what you did? Is it yeah?
that's
Did you ever do
yep.
anything secretive? Oh wow, very
The
cool.
vast majority of what I worked on, I can't talk about. But I
Wow.
can tell you, the B-21 bomber that just went through its first flights and is going through low rate of production right now. I started working on that about 5 years ago,
Oh wow.
4 before it was announced. Right.
Yeah.
Really, really cool stuff. It was probably the most interesting job I've had, and I went from that into Aeroseal thinking, oh well, if I can work on aircraft, if I can work on rockets, really actually do rocket science, HVAC should be easy. Well,
Uh-huh.
I ate some humble pie on that. HVAC's not easy. I had a lot to learn.
One of the arguments, well, I don't want to say arguments, but one of the things that we talk about a lot on our show is how DIY friendly the HVAC industry is, and
Mhm.
I think there are some things that I think the argument is valid that some homeowners say, look, I can do this myself, but then, like you said, there's some things that maybe homeowners, only a trained pro should be doing certain things,
Yeah,
and
that's exactly right. I can build a go-kart, but I don't know that if I could build a car with, all the modern safety features,
oh, that's true. That's a
right?
good analogy. Yeah.
Because I mean, there's no homeowner out there right now that's doing their own manual J, trying to figure out how to set the load and all that. They're buying what they can buy and throwing it in a window or through a wall, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Most folks don't even know what manual J is, and they'll find these websites, and I don't know, we're going down a rabbit hole, but
No,
they'll
I
find these
love it.
websites that'll say if your house is this many square feet, then your
Mhm.
system should be this size.
Yep.
And and they just don't understand it's so much more than I've even seen maps where there's like they'll put a line across the country, and they'll be like, if you're in this yellow zone or the green zone, then you should have this much capacity in your, per square footage or something. I mean, I don't know. It's just odd to
Exactly
me.
right. Yeah. Well,
So,
and was your house built in the last 20 years or the last 100 years? I
yeah.
mean, I'm sitting in a house right now that was built in 1898. My HVAC
Are you
needs
really?
yeah, my HVAC needs are nothing like a new construction build right now,
Yeah.
right? Furnace is 100,000 BTU in Ohio, and if I rebuilt this house to modern standards, I probably need a 60.
Yeah. So let me look that up. President during 1898. Do you know
There
who
we
that
go.
was?
I don't, not off the top of my head.
It says it was McKinley, and he was assassin. This says he
Yeah,
until his assassination in 1901. Wow.
there you go.
That's crazy. I love history, if you can't tell. So, yeah. We actually do have a question, and I'm curious to know the answer to this question. Chucky,
Yeah.
welcome to the show. Chucky says, besides duct sealing, can the product be used to seal leaks that occur in a building envelope? And if so, what has to be done for preparation, furniture removal, seal air off registers, etc.?
Hey, that's a great question. And Aero Barrier, which is our product for that, or Aeroseal Envelope, which it just got rebranded to, is exactly that. So let me take a half a step back, right? So Aeroseal has a machine that you hook up to the ductwork, we aerosolize sealant, and it just goes to the leaks. It doesn't, coat the ductwork. It doesn't, drop off everywhere. It just goes to the leaks. Well, the same exact thing happens for the envelope. You have a bunch of seal stations that you put out throughout the house, hook up a blower door, pressurize it, and you seal the leaks in the envelope to the house. Mostly done in new construction for this question alone, right? Is how much do you have to prep? So I'm going to blow a bunch of sticky sealant into your house, and when I'm done, the rest of it just falls to the ground. or any other horizontal surface, and it stays sticky forever because this stuff works forever, right? So normally done for new construction, to get the right air changes per hour for a new house. We have done it, and we can do it in existing homes. What we'll normally do is subcontract to a painter and say, hey, I want you to pretend that I'm spraying paint in this house, and I need you to cover every single horizontal surface you have, as well as block off the air registers. So we've seen it done. It's a lot to do. And when we say every horizontal surface, I mean trim, I mean, windowsills, stuff like that. But we're trying to make better processes for that, and we're trying to do it in commercial too, so you can seal from like floor to floor on a high rise, right? If you get a 90-story building, maybe you can just seal, the 34th floor if you needed to when a tenant's out.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So this is probably a dumb question, and I think you just answered it, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So if you come to my house with the aero barrier, or is that the term that you're using now for that product? Yeah. Okay. So aero barrier, and then I don't want to be home for that, right? I'm going to want to leave home.
Yeah, no way. I wouldn't be in there if I was doing the job.
Okay.
When that sealant's up, you're wearing a respirator and Tyvek and all that stuff. It's fine. Like, it's non-toxic, but picking that stuff out of your hair and your nose, right?
Yeah. And then how long after I leave home would I want to stay out of the home?
So again, for aero barrier, it's done in like the sealant settles after about an hour, and then you'd have to clean up all of the prep work. If we're talking about Aeroseal duct, you generally don't have to leave, and you can turn your system on as soon as we're done. So, less than 20 minutes, it's good to go.
And I'm embarrassed to say I didn't even know this product. So this is that's why I have so many questions. So that I've known about Aeroseal's duct sealing for years, and often even thought about offering it at my company, but my biggest problem was always finding good help to keep up with the work we had.
Sure.
And so I just never made the leap. But this is interesting stuff. So most of your contractors that offer Aeroseal, the duct sealing product, do they also offer aero barrier, or is it a either or is it usually,
So new construction guys, right? HVAC companies, a lot of them, let's call it 50%, also do Aeroseal envelope.
Okay.
If they're doing residential retrofit work, like most of our HVAC guys, they don't do Aeroseal envelope. Now, when I say it's possible to do a house that's occupied and finished and all that, I know of 10 offhand, and we've done 250,000 seals, right? So it's possible, but it's not normal, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, if you're going to do a gut job, you're replacing the flooring and walls and all of that stuff. Yeah, that's the time to do barrier or envelope.
Yeah. Emery asks, I'm having uneven temperatures. How do you test the ducts? Y'all don't necessarily fix zoning issues or even ductwork issues, as in if the installer simply installed the wrong size duct or not enough duct to a certain part of the house, right? But you guys are going to test before and after the I don't even know the verbiage, the pressure. You're going to pressurize the ducts and duct blast test it, right? Or
so what we do is a duct blaster test. It's just integrated with our equipment, and it's totally automatic. So pressurize the ductwork to 25 pascals. That's 0.001 psi, right? No pressure at all, and measure the amount of air that it takes to keep it at that pressure. You're measuring a flow rate. So what I'll say, right, for this question here, I've got uneven temperatures. If you had a system that's sheet metal and it's been put in, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, whenever the house was built, it leaks. I guarantee you it leaks. And if the problem is, the top corner room in your house, it's always a little bit warmer or a little bit cooler, it's probably worse because of duct leakage. And
Yeah.
while we can't fix it 100%, I can't grow new ductwork and I can't change the size of the ductwork. It'll help, right? It'll get more air where it needs to go.
Yeah, it'll be
because
sealed
otherwise, exactly. Otherwise, it's going to the attic, it's going to crawl space, it's going to the inside of your walls. Heating the inside of your walls doesn't help where you're sitting, right? But if you wanted to look, if you wanted to see, like, prove to yourself, hey, I've got leakage, what I'd tell you is go to wherever your HVAC unit is, right? See it sitting there. You see, the system sitting, let's say it's an upflow. You've got the plenum going off the top. Put your hand right next to the system itself and where it connects to the plenum, and you probably feel air. If you don't feel air there, move your hand up to where the top corner is. I guarantee you there's air coming out right there. And if there's air coming out right there, it's at every other single joint in your house.
Yeah. That's a good, easy test that most homeowners can do themselves. So
absolutely,
I like that.
Yeah.
Is Aeroseal, can it be used with like metal and ductboard ducting, or does the materials matter?
So our sealant's UL 181 listed, right? So if you can put tape there, if you can put mastic there, you can put Aeroseal there. It sticks well to metal, to ductboard, to lined metal, and to flex duct even, right? The plastic super thin Mylar or whatever it is in there, it sticks there too.
Yeah. Larry is a good friend of mine, and he does a lot of cool videos on YouTube. And he says, with the air ducts that are there intended areas, you're supposed to seal where the vents are, right?
Yeah. So what we do is when we come in, we'll isolate the furnace itself or the air handler, whatever it is. You don't want sealant in the coil or the fan. So we put in a big block of foam there. And then every place that you want air coming out, we seal off with tape or foam or, whatever makes sense for that application. So then when we're pressurizing it, air is coming out of places we don't want it to come out. And that's how we seal it. The sealant, as it's going through, right, it's little tiny particles. The way I like to think about it is if you're on the highway and you're going 90 miles an hour and you go off an exit, you're going to crash into the side rail. That's exactly what happens with our sealant. It goes really fast. It goes to a low pressure drop and it hits the side and it sticks. And then the next guy behind it, the next sealant particle sticks to that.
Yeah.
And just builds itself up over time.
I think I'm coming down with a cold or something. I've been coughing a little bit today.
Glad this is virtual.
Actually, while you were talking, I found this cool video that I'd like to share of the barrier product.
Oh yeah. Is it the animation?
I think so. I kind of watched a quick glimpse of it, and it looks like a really good video on the product.
Let's go for it.
And I was like, whoa, this is all new to me too. So let's see.
Yeah, there we go. Isn't that wild?
That is very interesting. Of course, now my computer is playing the next video. Hold on
Of
one
course.
second. It's very distracting. They always got to play their commercials, but
No,
anyway.
of course. So, like I said, you see all that sealant in the air, right? That's why we only recommend it for new construction. But we can, if you really, really want it, do it in an occupied home.
Sorry, anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, very cool. I think that's very interesting. So have you seen, I mean, I guess it would be hard to tell if it's a new construction home, but a percentage of, I don't know, savings, where someone would in their utility costs?
So I don't know that offhand, right? So I'm the product manager for the duct side. I've got a counterpart that does envelope.
Yeah,
but
I bring you on here to talk about the duct stuff, and we talk about everything but that, right?
It's all good. It's all fun. It's all interesting. What I'll say though is with all of the Inflation Reduction Act and all of the rebates and stuff coming, the Department of Energy is looking really, really heavily into, retrofits like that. So, at what point is it worth it to block everything off and tape everything up and make it, do this type of sealing? And I mean, just like a, kind of smell test to me doesn't make sense. I did a blower door on my house, my 130-year-old house now, at 50 pascals, right, which is 0.002 psi. My house changes its entire volume of air 23 times an hour.
Wow.
Right? How in the world do I heat or cool that?
Yeah.
So I've got to be spending tons and tons and tons of money, just on air leakage.
Yeah.
And I crawled around in the attic and, done top plate sealing. And I know I need to do my my joist at the bottom, but man, it's a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. This is probably, I don't know. Have you guys seen like an issue with ventilation when the products like this are installed? Have you seen guys need to get more educated when it comes to air quality and ventilation and such?
So Aeroseal envelope, they've been using the tagline for a while of build tight and ventilate right.
Yeah.
So, right, if I'm going to use, if I'm going to build it super, super tight, let's put in an ERV. Let's make it better for energy use, as well as, knowing how much I'm going to be bringing in rather than just guessing.
Yeah.
And I would guess that the air coming through an ERV is better than the air coming through your bottom plate, right?
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Yeah, that's something that I talked to a customer of ours. Well, actually, I think I originally talked to him years ago. And so I don't know if you know this, Zach, but I recently sold my company. So I had a heating and air business, but in addition to doing HVAC, we also did crawl space encapsulations.
Oh, yeah.
And so this particular customer had someone else do a crawl space encapsulation. And I don't want to be that guy that's like, oh, they didn't know what they were doing. But there is something to be said for, if you're going to do that kind of work, you need to at least understand ventilation and things like that. If you're going to seal up the house and make folks breathe recycled air and VOCs and all the other things that you're doing to them, then you might want to brush up on your education a little bit instead of
at least a little bit, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of folks that they just don't like, they just, you're good. You're good if you get a dehumidifier out of them at that point, they're just in there willy-nilly sealing things up. And, yeah. So, let's see. Chucky says, would you recommend duct sealing if all your ducts leak into a conditioned space? I suspect it would if the leaks were fairly bad. That's
a really good question. And we get pushback on that, right? So I live in a house on a slab, and all of the ductwork is in the slab or in my walls. Well, why do I care about air leakage or duct leakage at all? And when I started there, I was like, yeah, of course, that makes sense. Who cares? So let's take it a step back, right? Let's cut off the register boots and have it go 6 inches back in the wall. Is that okay? Yeah, it's probably okay. Well, let's take off the next 6-inch section that goes through the wall. Is that okay? It may not be as great. It may not be as balanced. Well, heck, like, let's just not put ductwork at all. Let's just make the furnace closet the hottest place in the house, and the outside corner the coolest place in the house. It's one of those things, like, from a energy balance standpoint, you're eventually getting all of those BTUs into the house, but are you distributing them well? I would say really, really significant leakage would impact your conditioned space, right?
That's a really good point. Yeah.
I Amit, our CEO, said that to an HVAC guy, because he was really like challenging us, saying like, well, I think this is a scam. I think this isn't, this isn't worth it. And that's the game he played. He's like, okay, well, how much ductwork can I take off? And he got to the like, okay, well, let's just put trunks in. Let's don't put any runs in. Let's not put it to any rooms. Is that okay? And the guy's like, well, no, of course not. He's like, but it's all in conditioned space. It should be fine, right? And the guy kind of like crossed his arms. He's like, yeah, okay, I get it. But it makes sense when you think about it that way.
Well, and on a basic human level, like a comfort side of things, someone that grew up in a home that had a wood stove, like we had one window unit that my dad would raise Cain if I turned it on in the summer. And I remember getting a job and being like, I'm going to help pay the power bill just so I can get a little AC in the summer. But in the winter we had a wood stove, and that's like the epitome of, one room being extremely hot and then the outside rooms of the floor plan being cold. So that's a really good point. Is it bad that it's leaking into a conditioned space? Maybe not. I mean, we have spiral duct and things like that, but from probably a utility bill standpoint and definitely a comfort standpoint,
right?
Having that air blown where you want it to be blown.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah. And at that point, right, you and I were talking about this before the show. You might as well go ductless, right? Put a mini split in every room and then you'll be comfy.
Yeah. Emery says, wait, you sold Griffin Air? Yes, I did. Go watch my video on that. So, in fact, I just started my new job yesterday. So I'm 2 days in, and I'm training other HVAC companies, and it's been interesting so far. So I've met a lot of really cool folks though. So I will say that.
Well, we're going to flip this interview. So you're 2 whole days in. What's your favorite thing so far?
Say that again. What was the question?
What's your favorite thing so far? This is a whole new venture.
So for me, I did a whole video called "Why Did I Sell My Heating and Air Business?" And in summary, I won't bore you with all the details, but in summary, for me, it got to a point where I was not finding good help, and I found a couple good guys. Like there's a couple guys. I don't want to use a blanket statement, and because I did find a couple good folks, and they are almost like family now. Even since we've sold the company, I still have stayed in contact with a few of them. But anyway, so finding good help was our biggest challenge of all our challenges. And then in addition to that, when you have just bad attitudes and entitled people, and I think that old folks have a legitimate argument to bash our generation and even the youngest generation at this point, because I had a hard time finding good help, and that was probably my biggest headache, across the board. So when another opportunity came along, it just felt right, So
right,
yeah.
We've got a couple of recruiters at Aeroseal, and they kind of joke about this, right? Because everyone has trouble finding good help.
Yeah.
And if you aren't having trouble finding good help, you're not hiring. Period.
Yep. Yeah, I just think anyway, I don't want to get too much into, because then it sounds
Okay.
political and whatever, but I think that there is something to be said for, we live in a country where I grew up very poor, and if you work very hard, you can be blessed in this country, unlike other parts of the world.
Mhm.
And I think that there are other folks that have other philosophies in life.
Sure.
They
You get
they
all
don't
kinds, right?
necessarily want to work hard and be blessed because of it. So yeah. Yeah, so we'll get off of that. What's something that that folks don't know about Aeroseal that maybe they should know?
Well, okay. So I kind of said it earlier, but I think it makes sense to really push in on it. Is I said earlier, we did 250,000 seals. So, US has 70, 80 million, 80 million homes, right? And we've done one little tiny bit of it, but we've done enough to know what we're doing, to know that it's not hurting anyone, to know that it works. And when I tell someone I work at Aeroseal, and they're like, "Well, what the heck is that? Is that an airplane company?" So no, it's one of the companies that's going to change the world.
Yeah.
And you start talking to people and you start saying like, "Hey, like look at your own system. I'm not going to go in. I'm not going to point it out to you, but go to your basement and look at where all the spider webs are moving. It's a problem everywhere, and it's a big deal, right? And you mentioned growing up poor. I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth, and every dollar counts in my family. And
Yeah.
if I can do Aeroseal for whatever cost it is, depending on where you're at in the country, and I can save for like my house, it's 10% a year. I did Aeroseal myself, and I'm saving 10% on my heating or my entire electricity and natural gas bill.
Wow.
That's wild, right?
Yeah.
Like that's an extra date night or 10 for me and my partner.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There's something I was going to ask you on that. Now I'm drawing a blank. I'll remember it in just a moment.
That's all right. But I mean, like, let's push on it too. Like, air leakage really, really matters. And you can't see it, right? You still got air coming out the vents. It feels fine. It must be fine. It's not. And you go into the wall, you go into the basement. You got air going all to the places you don't want it to go. If it was plumbing and you had water going where you didn't want it to go, you'd fix it today. You'd call a guy, at 9 o'clock at night for me and say, "Hey, come out here and fix this."
Yeah. I just remembered my question. So
All right.
because of the way the product works, does the cleanliness of the duct matter? Like, do you want to maybe have the ducts cleaned first before?
So you don't have to.
Okay.
So what we recommend is if you have more than 1/8 of an inch of dust buildup, right? So if you've got a ton of stuff, you haven't done it in 5 or 10 years, or maybe you've never had your ducts cleaned, probably a good idea. I like to joke that if you've got all that hair and dirt and dust and everything in there, it just makes the sealant stronger, because now it's like a composite. It's fiber reinforced. But it's fine either way. If the air is leaking, the sealant will go there.
Interesting. Chucky says, have you ever had any jobs that the product wouldn't work because the leaks were so large?
Yeah. Okay. So I've got a couple of good examples for this. This is really good.
Okay.
So we'll start with my house, right?
Okay.
So built in 1898. It had a forced air system probably put in the, I would guess, the 70s. The current furnace is from 1992. And they did all pan joist returns, and it's literally just cardboard and staples. And we sealed for like 3 hours, and I got it halfway done. I can go back and do it some more, and I probably will, but at some point you get diminishing returns. The other ones are, when it's just not connected, right? Someone forgot an end cap or something like that. You can't seal that. I can't build a new end cap with sealant, or I could if I put enough gallons of sealant through there, but it's just not worth it at that point.
Yeah.
But I'll say, like, Aeroseal, the system, right? The machine is a tool. What we do and what our contractors do that buy the equipment, they're selling duct sealing. So if there's a disconnection, if there's a break, if there's something like that, it's their job to fix it, to make it right, and then duct seal to do the Aeroseal part.
Yeah, well, and as I understand it, the product, I think you had mentioned it earlier, so forgive me, I don't know the verbiage, but it builds on itself. So if it is a larger leak, it's gonna, make that smaller and then smaller and then smaller until it's completely sealed. Is that right?
That's right. But the bigger hole you start with, how much do you have passing through the middle, right? Yeah, there you go. So we've had this animation forever, right? So you got aerosolized sealant that's going through. It's passing through the ductwork, and every time there's a hole, it smacks into the side. You also have some that goes through, right? So you get a little bit of overspray. And then, those sealant particles go further and further down the system. So as long as I can get the sealant there, it will seal. Bigger the hole, the longer it takes. I'd say
Gotcha.
on average for houses, in the US, right? Let's say just the US, we seal for probably 30 minutes to an hour. Flex systems are closer to 30 minutes. Sheet metal's closer to an hour. And totally depends on the quality of the construction. And, how many times have I had someone work on it or change it or do something with it? Yeah, here's the newest animation we did too. Which this is the process, right? So we go into your home, we find all the registers, find all the vents, we put some foam in or we tape over the top of them. And then where the equipment is, we block it off and isolate it from the sealant stream, cut a big hole, and then put our plastic lay flat on there and start injecting sealant.
Do you guys have standards for the contractors themselves? Meaning, if you get some customers that are like, hey, look, this contractor's just not, they just don't have very high standards. Is that something you guys pay attention to?
It is. So we both qualify people that are coming in, right? So if there's someone that doesn't have any history, right? If they're starting this today, we don't sell it to them. You have to have at least 2 years in business,
Really,
to buy a piece of Aeroseal equipment, and it's our sub-license agreement, right? So we have patents on this thing, and we don't want to just hand these patents to anyone, right? We don't want them to make us look bad, or the rest of the contractor base. So 2 years in business. You have to keep 2 technicians who are certified by us, right? So that's on-site training with our team. We have a training center that we just built up this last year. And you come in, you do 2 full days of hands-on training with the equipment, how to use it, how not to use it, how to not screw up someone's HVAC system, right? Because you blow a bunch of glue through a AC coil and, suddenly you got to put a new one in, right?
Yeah.
So, we do a lot on trying to get good, we call them dealers in, as well as keeping them on. We reward the ones that are doing a good job, and we make good examples of them, and coach the rest that if they need some help, we're there 100% of the time for them.
Yeah, very cool. Larry says, I'm debating on Aeroseal, but I got my duct fixed first. I have 290s right off the unit. So my main trunk line is U-shaped. You think that's bad for static or turbulence? I can hear turbulence. I mean, it's hard to say for sure, Larry, but I'm sure if you're hearing things, then there's a chance that you at least are adding quite a bit of static.
Yeah.
When ductwork is, a lot of folks don't realize, when ductwork is, and sorry, Zach, I might be stepping on your toes here.
No,
but
please.
When it's installed correctly and sized properly, the whole idea is efficiency, the equipment to not be strained, right? So the static adds to that. But then the last thing I would say is sound. You don't want it to sound like a jet engine every time the system turns on. And if you're hearing that, there may be something that could be done better. You know, I'll just put it that way. It doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong. It just means maybe something could be done better. I remember I've had customers that say to me, well, my last system worked 30 years, you know, with that size duct. And I'm like, okay. And you know, it doesn't matter that it works. It's there's so much more to it than that, you know? I don't know.
And that's something that we run into as well. So I've seen some of our dealers or partners, they will do Aeroseal during a changeout, right? And when they do that, we were talking about manual J earlier, your load changes based on your leakage. So if we drop that leakage all the way down, you might be able to go down a half ton or even a full ton on an AC system. It's good for the homeowner, it's good for you, and you don't need you know, what HVAC guys used to do all the time is, well, the homeowner's unhappy, put a bigger system in. We know it leaks, so just throw a bigger system in. They're going to pay it in utilities and in static pressure, but who cares? Well,
yeah,
that's not the right way to do things, right?
Yeah. It makes me cringe when you say that, but it's totally right, you know, because that is the attitude that a lot of folks unfortunately have in our industry at times, you know.
Well, and I'll be the first to raise my hand and say my house is that way, right? I've got the perfect example with my super old house, but before I did Aeroseal, I checked the static pressure, and we were at 0.7, right? A Aeroseal without making that better first will make static pressure worse. It makes your ducts tighter, so of course it increases your static pressure.
Oh, that's a good point.
By just a little bit, but you should at least know that. And we teach all our technicians, right? Check it. Make sure that you're not gonna, you know, blow out a motor for that.
Oh, sorry, Tech Junkie. He said, "Who's Larry?" Larry Bird. Anyway, yeah, my bad. One of our other viewers, his name's Larry, and my dad used to always say, you can't walk and chew bubble gum at the same time. And I think he's totally right. Literally. I mean, I'm not a multitasker. So when I'm trying to do multiple things at once, I do want to ask you, Zach, when I sent you the list of questions that I could possibly ask during our show, one of those questions at the end was a goofy invention. Did you come up with a goofy invention?
Oh man.
It's okay. I had to ask because I can't remember. I think last week Will was our guest, and he had an invention that I was like, holy crap, that's better than sleeves put on a sleeves put on a blanket and calling it a Snuggie, you know. Yeah, so let's see. What does a day look like for Zach? Zach goes to work. He works at Aeroseal. What's a day look like for Zach?
Well, that's a harder question than the invention one. So I haven't had the same day twice in a year and a half. So I every day I'm working with research and development, with the sales teams, with marketing, with the CEO, with our vice presidents, and everyone that has a stake in what Aeroseal is, and solving problems and trying to anticipate new problems. Yesterday, I answered questions from 3 different homeowners because they emailed us. And I had a dealer that, for whatever reason, he holds up all of his questions to like once a month and sends me a novel. So I spent 2 hours answering those.
Gotcha.
Today I helped with some marketing stuff, and then I prepped for this tonight, right? So, we're at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday night, and here I am working.
Oh, so it's 9 o'clock there too. So I thought you guys were Central Time.
We're East Coast, yeah.
Okay. I never quite understand where that line is.
It's somewhere in Indiana, but
I mean, it's really far over, because I was talking to somebody I think he was in Michigan earlier, and he said, "Oh yeah, we're on Eastern Standard Time," and I'm like, "Michigan's on Eastern Time?
Right,
That's crazy."
Right. Yeah, sunset's an hour early, but you're still on that time.
Yeah, It's probably the high school I went to was called Buffalo Gap, and so the big joke we would always say is, "Well, I went to Gap." So
Oh, there you go.
you know, I mean, what do you expect? So,
Right.
do you have any horror stories you could share? Any
Oh,
crazy
yeah.
horror stories? Okay.
Okay. So in training, we have 3 stories that come up, and this is perfect. We can go through them real fast. So one, we had someone with wall cavity returns, and they opened them all up, and they went back out to the truck to see how they were going to fix them first, right? The most that they were going to do. And there was a poor little cat that thought that was an interesting place to hang out, and that cat got sealed for about an hour. And he was fine. He went to the vet.
Oh my gosh. Okay, good.
Got like 4 or 5 baths in Dawn dish soap. But we've got a picture. I wish I had it on me to share. His fur was all matted up. His eyes could barely open.
Oh
but
man.
I can't imagine, how bad he would feel.
Yeah.
But if it tells you anything about how safe this stuff is, the cat kept living, right after that, and we didn't get a complaint from the homeowner that we killed their cat. Maybe he lost 2 of his 9 lives.
Yeah.
So that's one.
That is true. He had multiple lives. So if it had been any other animal, he would have been in trouble. That's
right.
A good point.
Another one, when we come in, we say we need to see every register, every place that air comes out, because if we don't, sealant goes through that register. And our dealer went through and they blocked everything off and they started the test, and they had gigantic leakage. And the dealer kept asking, "Is there anywhere else? Is there something we forgot?" And they walked all around the house. Well, you can buy those swinging bookcases, like the kits off Lowe's and Home Depot. Poor family had grandmother's furs in there. They had antique shotgun collection, just all of the stuff, and it got covered, like absolutely covered in sealant. And we had all the lawsuit discussion and all of that, but I mean, hey, we told you, we asked you a million times, is there another register in here? And you decided not to tell us.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine, right? Either side of that situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the last one, is grand piano. It was over top of a register. No one noticed. And they kept sealing and sealing and sealing. The whole room fogged up. And this piano was, I don't know, probably $100,000, if not more, probably more expensive than the house it was in. And that guy still works at that dealer. And we keep saying like, hey, you probably don't want him to run the equipment anymore. But I think he learned his lesson. So
yeah. Oh my God.
But yeah, you talk about horror stories, right? The getting glue that's intended to last for 20 years, if not more, on stuff that you care about. Your cat, your furs, your guns, whatever, is not ideal.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I wasn't expecting those when I asked, did you have any horror stories? You really do have some horror stories.
I got them teed up. What I'm hoping, right? So we say all this, it's in the training. We train on those 3 things specifically and say, here are things that can happen. Don't let it happen. Mm-hmm. And I'm happy to say that since I've started a year and a half ago, I haven't had any more horror stories. So,
well, yeah, you just put, you really lay it out, how important it is. And that's a really good point. So
put the fear of God into them.
Yeah. I when I started my new job the other day, the lady in HR that had me fill out all the paperwork, she said, well, look, we're going to give you a cell phone. And I want you to know, I'm telling you up front, we monitor that cell phone. We monitor it. And I guess they've probably had enough problems that they're letting you know. And I told her, I said, I'm probably the person you shouldn't have told that to, because now whoever's monitoring it, I'm gonna take a bunch of pictures of my feet.
I like that.
Tech Junkie says, does Aeroseal work for commercial buildings?
Yeah. So Aeroseal for commercial is actually way easier as far as figuring out energy savings and things like that, because commercial fan systems, things like that, you can lower the fan speed the more sealed it is, right, to get the air where you want it to go. And they have that capability. It's, bigger ECMs. So we've done Air Force bases, we've done schools. So Ohio State University, Clemson University, Ohio State. I think we've done like 100 of their buildings over there.
Wow.
And the payback
That's
ends up
saying
being
something right there. So you
right?
didn't just do
Exactly.
one. They said,
Yeah.
"Oh wow, we want you to do more buildings."
They keep coming back. And we've done, man, I think the payback that we come up with is 4 to 7 years. Like, and you can't get anything with a payback like that. You put in new windows on a house, payback is 50, 30, somewhere around there. You never pay back a higher efficient HVAC unit. So yeah. It's kind of wild, but it's a full third of our business. So we've got duct residential, we've got envelope, which is basically new construction, and we have commercial.
Yeah.
And we're actually spooling up a lot of commercial with New York, because they've got some laws going in place that require you to reduce your emissions, and the ROI on that goes crazy high.
Yeah. I can tell you that as somebody that now at my company, we did very little new construction, but we did enough to where we had to do some duct blast tests.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, I was blessed that I had a really good duct guy that worked for me. And so we never had an issue, but I was always scared, because I was like, if that duct blast, if that test comes back failed,
Mm-hmm.
what are we going to do next?
Right.
I mean, I'm looking at all the new duct now and it all looks fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's all installed. Where, what do we do next? And,
you go with a bucket of mastic and chase it with a paintbrush for hours, days, whatever. Yeah.
And I know there's techniques of finding leaks and so on, but ultimately I think Aeroseal is, it would have given me peace of mind. I would have said, I don't give a rip if I fail, because if I do, I've got an option here,
So we get two types of people in that, and you kind of said one of them there is that I'm going to install my ductwork, I'm going to do my new construction, and if I fail, I'm going to do Aeroseal. And I've got some guys that's all they do, or they call an Aeroseal contractor and they come in and do it for them.
Yeah.
Or you get the guys that are doing volume. So up in Minnesota, their duct leakage is their code is so tight, they have to be really careful about it. Well, they just do Aeroseal on every one of them and don't worry about it. They can have a sheet metal guy that's just out of school or just learning, and you can still seal it every single time. You don't have to worry about the test.
Very cool.
Right. So depends on where you want to spend your labor hours, right? Do you want to go chase leaks, or do you want to just know it's done and taken care of?
Absolutely. Yeah, you go chasing leaks and then you still didn't get it. I mean, I can only imagine.
What's the cost of a second test, right? It's like $350 every time.
Yeah. One of the questions Tech Junkie asked was, is there a dealer finder? That is something you guys are working on, right?
Yeah, so we had one that was okay to use. We're building a new one that you'll be able to put in your address, and you'll see exactly who services like your area, your home. But for now, you can just contact us directly, and we'll get it to you. You can go to the website, aeroseal.com, or email info@aeroseal.com, and we'll get you hooked up with someone.
Yeah, when you go to the website, you just put in your info, and then you guys will get them hooked up with somebody.
Yep.
So, very cool. Well, as we get close to the end of our show here, one of the things we do with folks, if you're watching us, whether you're new to our show or have been here before, one of the things we like to do is, if you know of a good heating and air company out there, make sure do me a favor, share them in the chat and where they're located. You never know. You may be someone in your area may see your comment, and you might be able to throw that company some business. But the other thing you might do is, there's so many bad ones out there. Let's show the good ones some love. So yeah, share that in the chat as we do wind down. Zach, give me the big picture, give me the pitch. And, as we do get towards the end of our show here, what is the reason why, why should a homeowner get Aeroseal, but B, why should a contractor offer Aeroseal?
All right. I love it. So yeah, I'm going to answer both with the same statement, right? So the Department of Energy, they've modeled and measured like 50,000 homes. And the only houses that they have in that model of 50,000 that don't have duct leakage don't have ducts. If you have ducts, they leak, period. And you can have the best tinner in the world and you can put 100 gallons of mastic on it, you've still got a leak somewhere. So you might as well don't waste a bunch of time doing it. Just get Aeroseal done. And the more this gets adopted, the more this gets out here, the lower the cost is for the homeowner, the lower the cost is for the contractor, the better that I can, work with R&D and make the equipment. And if you're into the environmentalism like I am, right? Duct leakage is one of the major contributors to climate change, right? We're just throwing money out the window through BTUs and through leaky air. It's the right thing to do for your pocketbook and for your community, right? I saw that question come up on ROI. Right now, it's anywhere from 5 to 10 years. But again, that's dependent on cost, dependent on the size of your house, dependent on how bad it is to begin with. And it's only going to get better, right? We get more efficient equipment, more efficient ductwork. You're putting in something that's there for the life of the home, not for the life of your furnace, right?
Yeah. And you said in your own home, didn't you say that? What was the savings you said that you experienced?
My bills dropped 10%.
10%.
Both natural gas and electricity. So
yeah,
not my fridge, not my lights, anything like that. Just ceiling duct leakage dropped at 10%.
So that means within a year, you've saved back what that power bill was, right?
Yep.
And then, so, I don't know what it costs to have Aeroseal installed either, but just overall, I mean,
so
that's still pretty good savings.
Yeah, there's a range. Right now, I think the average is $2,500. I want to get that down. So there's people that can't afford that, and they deserve to have this done, right? They deserve to have their bills lower. So I don't know what that number is, but I'm working on it, and that's through making it easier to do, faster to do, cheaper to do, right?
Yeah, and you guys are working on newer products too. So
yep,
things we can't talk about, but but new stuff coming. Yeah. So that's really cool.
And the other thing I wanted to throw out there, right? So this is a little soapboxy for me, but we started the show with talking about working for the Air Force, right? The coolest job I have ever had. I left that behind. I left behind a pension and really, really good retirement and all of that to do this because I believe in it. Aeroseal is something that matters and is going to impact, millions of lives as we get out there, and it's worth it for that. So, yeah,
I like it. I want to say too, if you're still with us, I know our numbers are a little low this week, but that's probably partly because I had my show on a different night last week. We will be not having a show next week, but in return, and I think Samantha from Aeroseal told me that you guys might be in on this too a little bit, Zach. I don't know. But I want to tell anybody that's here, if you see this, we're not going to be here next week, but if you're here for the week after that, we had so much fun a couple weeks ago when we hit 50,000 subscribers and we did multiple giveaways. I wasn't able to get in touch with Samantha in time, so you guys didn't get in on that. But we're going to be doing some more giveaways 2 weeks from now. So if you're here on our show 2 weeks from now, we're going to be doing some more cool giveaways. And I think Aeroseal is going to partake in that. I think, I might be speaking out of turn on that, but
right.
But yeah, so very cool. Make sure you're there. Let's get these numbers back up to where they were. I think just a few weeks ago, we had gotten up to over 40 folks at any given point. So get these numbers back up. And there's Samantha.
Oh,
And then we'll be giving away some stuff in return. So
I didn't know I was being supervised on this show. So
yeah,
Samantha
you
and I
are.
gonna have to have a talk later.
Yeah, she's gonna tell you all the things you did wrong.
That's exactly right. Just to hit that question real fast, is there a benefit of Aeroseal versus me doing mastic paint on sealant? Yeah, absolutely. If you don't want to tear out your drywall to get those ducts in the walls, that's where Aeroseal goes. You can paint everywhere else. I did it at my house too. But unless you're ripping out the walls, mastic's not going to help you there.
I think there's something to be said for too, even if you go with mastic, unless you're going to simply go so crazy and go to every square inch of your duct like Aeroseal does, right? That there is still a chance that you're not going to get everything. In fact, I'm picturing the system up here in my house right now, and I could climb back there and go to town, right? I could take some mastic and I'll probably need a new shirt after because I'd get it all over me and all that fun stuff. But I'm just thinking there's ducts that I could probably get to one side of it, but maybe not so well on the back side of it, kind of deal. Whereas Aeroseal, you test before you do the product and it hits every nook and cranny, right? Nook and cranny. And then you're going to test after and make sure that the product actually worked. And I just love that.
Right. So, and it's done in a day and you don't need to buy a new shirt.
Yeah. Yep. Well, very cool. Well, I appreciate your time. And when those new products do come out, make sure you keep me in mind.
Yeah.
Maybe you come back on and roll it out with us. And
I'd love to.
I don't know, maybe someday I can make my way up to Ohio and we can do some videos on when you guys are training these folks and things like that. That would be kind of cool.
Anytime. We'd love to do that.
So very cool. Well, anything else you want to close with, or anything we forget, anything we missed?
I can only preach for so long. I think I got my point across. If you're still here and you think your ducts don't leak, you weren't listening. So.
Yeah. I like that. I like it. Well, I just put the website again in the chat there. And again, we're going to be giving away some stuff in 2 weeks. So make sure you're here 2 weeks from now. And Zach, maybe you could even jump in there. Maybe we'll give something to you, but yeah, awesome. I appreciate it. And we'll see. I usually close with telling everyone that I'll see you next Tuesday at 8:30, but you will not see me. I'll be out of the country. But 2 weeks from now, we'll be back every Tuesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Find out what that time is in your area. And again, we'll see you then. I usually say make it a great week, but make it a great 2 weeks. We'll see you then.